Hello students, I am Ms. Aishwarya Sharma and today we are going to discuss about the topic communication. As we all know that communication is extremely important, before starting the chapter, we will discuss the meaning of the word communication. So the word communication is derived from a Latin word that is communist, which means common. Whenever we want to communicate with someone, we need a common ground of understanding, a common topic. Whenever we are communicating, be it with your friends, be it with your relatives, your parents, we need some common understanding, a common thought, opinion, fact, or anything which that other person can understand. So that is communication. According to Alan Louis A, communication is the sum of all the things one person does when he wants to create understanding in the mind of another. As we all know, whenever we want to communicate with someone, we communicate through different modes. And for a language, we use all the basics: listening, speaking, reading, or writing. All of this includes your expressions, your non-verbal body communication. It all makes communication. So we have to understand however you are going to make another one understand. For example, right now I am giving you a definition, I am giving you an example of communication. I am trying to make this topic clear to you. So that is communication. Moving on, we have to understand the process of communication. For this, please try to understand, for a communication, for a cycle to complete, we need a sender and a receiver. And a sender will encode a message and then this will be sent to a receiver. Now this receiver will decode the message and then this receiver will encode a feedback. After encoding the feedback, this receiver will turn into a sender and this sender will turn into a receiver. Alright, and between them, this is a medium. A medium between any communication, you can think about network, like we call someone over the phone. So that is network which is connecting us. Or if we are communicating through a letter or through a text, then again, it's a medium between us. Okay? But sometimes we have a hindrance between us. That is referred as noise. Whenever your message, the flow of the message has been disrupted, it is called as noise. We will discuss about different barriers in communication, but over here you have to understand how does a process of communication takes place. For this, you always have to remember we need two people for this, at least two people. The one will be sender, the other will be receiver, and to complete a whole cycle of communication, this feedback is extremely important. Why feedback is extremely important? Whenever we are communicating with someone and we are not getting the right reply from that particular person, that means that this person hasn't understood or there is something wrong with your message. So to clarify it, you always have to ask for a feedback. Whenever we are in an offline class, you will notice that a teacher will teach you a particular topic and after that, a teacher will question you. That question and answer is basically a feedback, and many times the teacher asks you, have you understood or are there any queries? So that is only to complete the cycle of communication. Moving on. Next, we have different types of communication. Whenever we have to understand different types of communication, we must remember in an organization, basically there are two types of communication. One is formal and the other one is informal. We are going to start with the formal communication. Formal communication is further divided into two parts. The one is downward, the other one is upward. To understand this, I am going to give you a few examples. To understand downward communication, we have to see our communication starts from a higher organization or with a higher subordinate and it goes towards the lower subordinates. For example, if we want to talk about, let's discuss an example through a college system. If a college decides to organize a particular event, for that all the higher committees will sit together and they will decide the budget and so many other things. Then the DSW team will discuss with other DSW teachers and the students, all the council members, they will discuss and distribute the duties. Then this whole information will be passed on to the HODs. Then HODs will further communicate this communication to all the students, as well as all the students now will discuss with each other. So on, you will realize that a higher authority to a student, the flow of this communication is downwards. So this is an example of downward communication. To understand this, you can take the examples of emails, faxes, house journals, and so many other things. Alright, so we can also understand this through a definition. In downward channels of communication, the stress is on the need of conveying orders and viewpoints. Why viewpoints? Because this is the role of a higher authority, a higher organization. Moving towards the next sort of communication, that is upward communication. There's one more thing that you must remember, that whenever we are talking about the formal communication, the flow of communication is vertical. You will realize that all the flow is downward or upward. There's no in between. So when we are talking about the upward communication, it's exactly the opposite of the downward communication. The flow of communication starts from the lower ground and it goes to the highest point. For example, if a student has any query or any problem, then the first thing is that they will discuss this particular problem or issue with their class counselor. After this, if a class counselor feels that they are not able to solve this problem, then they will discuss with head CC. If that particular head CC will feel that they are not able to solve this particular issue, then they will take this to the HOD and so on. So this is an example of upward communication. You will see that it starts from lower strata to the higher strata. To understand this, you can take the examples such as open door policy, suggestion boxes, questionnaires, special meetings, and so on. Whenever you go to any organization or any bank, many a times you will see there is a letter box and over there it's written as suggestion box, right? So it helps in the improvement of the organization. Next. Now we are going to discuss different types of informal communication. As I just mentioned that the flow of formal communication is vertical, the flow of informal communication is horizontal. Why? Because you were earlier discussing about the higher and lower, higher and lower organization, but over here it's all about the same. As we usually prefer informal communication or informal language with people who are same as us. So starting with the first type of informal communication, that is lateral or horizontal communication. This form of communication is found among members working at the same level. Or you can also take an example such as when you are studying, for say you are a student of BSc semester 1. So whenever you are going to communicate with all of your class group, be regardless of the section A, B, C or so on, you all are same. Right? So all of you, whenever you are going to communicate with each other, be it regarding to your subject or anything, any co-curricular activities, that will be that will come under horizontal communication. Next we have diagonal communication. As we know, the flow of diagonal communication will be something like this. For diagonal communication, you can take the example that when a student of BSc second year is communicating with BSc first year, BSc third year, or MSc 1, MSc 2, or even from different departments, for say BCA, MBA and so many more. Whenever you are communicating with other groups as well, for say you are communicating with the students itself, but all of them belong to different groups, different subjects, different streams, different semesters, then this will come under diagonal communication. Now, to understand diagonal communication, the importance is that this will help in creating harmony, and this will help you to create more contacts outside your particular organization or even your particular class. Next, we have the grapevine communication. So what is grapevine? To understand this, you have to just only remember that it is all related to backbiting, stabbing or rumors. आप देखेंगे usually rumors कौन बनाते हैं? आपके ग्रुप के लोग, है ना? So for this we have one interesting example. You can take examples from Bollywood movies. You will see that there are certain movies in which there are people, communicating a particular message in different ideologies. So passing off all the messages with different ideologies, different perspectives, but in a wrong sense. That will all come under grapevine communication. Next, we are going to talk about barriers in communication. As I mentioned that between the process of communication, there are many barriers which many people can face. So we are going to start with physical barriers. As the name itself suggests, it's about the physical distance between two people. For say the one person you want to communicate with lives in Delhi. So, but you are in Chandigarh right now, or in Punjab, or wheresoever in the whole world. But you want to communicate with them. There may be few instances that you are not able to interact with them, in a positive aspect. For say it's because of poor connection, or there is no network, or anything like that. That will all come under physical barriers. Next, we have language barriers or semantic barriers. Language barriers, it includes all the languages. Okay? For say many a times you will see like Gen Z, all of your generation are using slangs or jargons for different terms for say slay or LOL or RFL, whatsoever you are using. It's not necessary that the other person of different generation or even your generation will understand the meaning of it. So that will come under language barrier. Next is semantic barriers. Basically, semantic means the science of meaning. What is the meaning of a particular word? Maybe you are using a particular word in a different context, but for the other person, it may seem to be a bit off. That will create a tension, that will create a misunderstanding. That is semantic barrier. For this, you can understand about semantic barrier through a wonderful example by the movie PK. If you remember, if you have watched this movie, you will remember the Amir Khan, that PK character in that movie expresses the different meanings of acha in the Hindi language. If you are confused, you even say acha. If you are surprised, you even say acha, and so on. Alright, moving on. Next is psychological or attitudinal barriers. It's all related to the mind, psychology or attitudes. The psychological state of the communicators will influence how the message is sent, received, and perceived. For example, if someone is stressed, they may be preoccupied by personal concerns and not as receptive to the message as if they were not stressed. It's exactly many a times how you feel if you are in a classroom, or even if you are at home, you want to prepare for a particular exam, but you are focused on something else. There's something else is going on in your mind. You have tension related to family issues or something like that. You will not be able to focus on your study. That is exactly how psychological issues or tensions will, cause a barrier in completing the process of a communication cycle. Next is attitudinal barriers. It's all about attitude, your behavior. Someone is feeling too excited, someone is feeling too low, and that's how the other person will not be able to receive or perceive the understanding or the complications of what the other person is trying to say. You can see a picture over here. Over here, this particular girl is saying that you have an attitude problem. You are just too happy. See, again, it's an issue for certain people. Even if you are feeling too happy, too excited, maybe that person is not in that particular mindset. Okay? Moving on. Next, we have physiological barriers. Physiological barriers to communication may result from the receiver's physical state. Whatever your physical state is, we can take one example. For say, if you are feeling, you are not feeling good, you are feeling as if you have fever, you will not be able to sit in class and focus on what the teacher is trying to teach you. Similarly, we have one other example. For example, a receiver with reduced hearing may not fully grasp the content of a spoken conversation, especially if there is significant background noise. So that is how your physiological state, your, whatever is around you and whatever you feel impacts the process of communication. Next, we have personal barriers. Now, personal barriers is extremely huge. It's really vast. You can see that there are so many points over here. For say, we have judgment, we have social values, we have inferiority complex, bias, attitude, pressure of time, and so many other things. As we know that each and every single individual is different from each other. So that is how our barriers, personal barriers, will differ from each one of us. Whatever your, you have your conditioning will be different from the other person, and that will cause the disturbance in the process of communication. Next, we have status barriers. You can also understand it as superior subordinate relationship or social strata or caste. As we know that we are a part of, a nation, or even in the whole world. The whole world is divided into, the powerful people and not so powerful people. For example, even, you can understand this particular thing at your home itself. For say, we have our helpers at our home. You will see that even they are working hard to earn money, but they, they do not have that much right as compared to us. So, all of this kind of status barrier, this creates distortions in all kinds of communication, be it your upward communication or downward communication or even informal communication. Moving on. Next, we have barriers due to inadequate attention. This is very common when we are getting bored or when we feel this particular, topic is not relevant to us. For say, you are in a class and you are feeling that I don't feel like, studying today, and you are just not that motivated. So that will come under inadequate attention. You will not be able to provide feedback to the teacher because you were not present, mentally present over there. Inadequate attention to the message makes communication less effective and the message is likely to be misunderstood. Alright, next is premature evaluation. Some people have the tendency to form a judgment before listening to the entire message. That is exactly how we judge certain people, be it consciously or unconsciously, before talking to them. That is exactly how it happens in barriers in communication under the category premature evaluation. You didn't allow the other person to complete their message, but now you have gained a particular notion in your mind. That is premature evaluation. Next we have is resistance to change. It is a general tendency of human beings to stick to old and customary patterns of life. That is one of the major issue which we face, during, you can call it as generation gap. Right? When we are trying to express certain points of this particular, generation to an older generation, be it your parents or grandparents, you will realize that there is a totally different mindset. It's all because resistance to change, because they have, seen a particular, sort of environment, and according to it, they have made a different mindset. Now they do not feel like changing, and that will come under resistance to change. Next is barriers due to lack of mutual interest. Now, this is extremely important when we are talking about communication, because in order to have an effective communication, we really need to, trust the other person. It can be anyone out there. If you want to communicate with them, you have to feel that, I can trust this person and I can express, or I can understand exactly how they want to say or what they mean. If we feel that there is lack of mutual trust, then obviously there will be misunderstanding, and even there will be, disruption in the flow of communication. If you even want to tell each and everything to the other person, you will feel that, maybe this person will not be able to understand me, and will, may make gossips or rumors. All right, moving on. Next is how to overcome the barriers in communication. So right now we completed the topic barriers in communication. Now it's all about how to overcome it. Now, as you have understood the barriers in communication, now this will be extremely easy for you. To understand to understand how to overcome the barriers in communication, you have to start with planning and clarifying the ideas. First of all, you have to plan certain notions, certain things, certain tasks, certain points, that what do you want to clarify with the other person. Only then it will become easier for you to start with. Next is create a climate of trust and confidence. This is exactly what we have discussed as the last point in barriers in communication. When we are talking about the trust and confidence, you will feel much more happy and much more involved in that communication, with whosoever you are trying to communicate. Next is reinforce words with action. Majorly, most of the time what happens is that we say something which we do not even mean. So don't do that. Try to focus and really try to, reinforce words with action. Say, those things, which you truly mean, which you truly abide with. Next we have is use feedback. As we earlier discussed that the process of communication will complete only if we have feedback. For, I'm going to repeat this for you. We will start with sender. Sender will encode a message. Then this message will be delivered to the receiver. And then this receiver will encode a feedback, right? And this will be sent to the sender through a medium. So over here we can see how feedback is extremely important, because otherwise we will not be able to complete the process of communication. So please try to use feedback as much as possible. As you have seen in your schools, even in your college, you will realize that after some time, after every 2 months or after a semester, completion of a semester, you will get feedback forms. Okay, so this will help the higher authorities to understand, how, all the teachers are teaching, and if you have any query, they can come up with amazing solutions. Next is use of simple and meaningful language. Always remember that using simple and meaningful language will make your communication much easier. We all feel, many a times, specifically in the language English, there is a notion, behind that if we are going to use amazing vocabulary and everything, then we will be, termed as really learned person. It's nothing like that. Yes, definitely, you will be a top, you will be given a top priority, or you will be considered as a good, a person with who has amazing knowledge about words. But it's not always necessary to use, typical vocabulary with everyone around you. If you want that everyone should understand you, or you feel that you somehow, you are the person who is being misunderstood by so many people around you, then try to use simple and meaningful language. Don't try to make things complicated at all. The last is communication should be direct, to a purpose and a person. It should not be like, I have a particular thought, I will discuss it with everyone. You have to see that who is going to be interested in, listening to your thoughts, your opinions. As we started with the meaning of the word communication, If you remember that we talked that communication, this word is derived from a Latin word that is communist, which means common. So try to find what is common between you and the other person, and only use that particular topics or thoughts or whatever with that particular person. All right. Moving on towards the last topic of today, that is importance of communication. The importance of communication is, that it's a huge topic, but I have tried to, complete it within the 5 points. The number one is growth. It will help you in your growth. It's not only about the growth of an individual, it's about the whole organization or institution wherever you are working or you are a part of. If you feel that you want to grow, then you need communication. All right, you will realize if that everyone around you is not able to trust you, or there's misunderstanding or whatsoever, there are issues between the communication, then you will not be able to grow, or that particular organization will not be able to grow because of the lack of communication. Next is reducing complexity. A communication, a well thought communication will help you in reducing complexity. There may be complex thoughts, misunderstanding, mistrust. You can, bring all of that to ground zero because of using communication. Next is maintaining competition. To improve, to make a healthy competition, we have to use communication. Why? Because over here you can see this picture that it's all related to a competition. You have to use communication in a certain way that will entrain a healthy competition within ourselves, and you will realize that many organizations, for say any company, any brand, use communication for their growth and to bring a healthy competition all around the market. Next is harmony. As we all know, harmony is a byproduct of communication. If there is no communication, there will be no harmony. If you want to maintain brotherhood, you need communication. If you want to even, you want to fight with someone, you need communication. It's all about how you are expressing yourself. Next is understanding and cooperation. This is the last point and the most easiest one. If you want to bring understanding, growth, you want to reduce complexity, maintain competition and everything, for that you need communication. But communication will eventually result in understanding and cooperation. हम जब तक किसी से बात नहीं करेंगे तब तक हमारी बात उसको समझ में नहीं आएगी, right? So for that you all have to communicate. Many a times, I have seen around us that people hesitate in, communicating with other people, and this really, this particular issue leads to downfall of everyone. As a human being, we have to use our power of speech in making harmony, understanding, and a good atmosphere around us. So thank you so much, everyone. So here we come to the end of the slide.